Steve Lavin, now at St. John's, used to be at UCLA, and then we were just talking during the break. We say goodbye to Candlestick Park tonight. It's the last game. It's the Niners and the Falcons. You grew up in San Francisco, but you worked at Candlestick Park. Now, Dwight Clark said it was a dump, but it was our dump. Do you agree?
Agree. I was actually at the game at Candlestick Park, NFC Championship against the Cowboys, 81-82, when Dwight Clark caught that pass from Joe Montana.
Were you working?
In the back of the end zone. In that particular game, I was attending with one of my best friends, Craig Nelson, whose dad had season tickets, and I saved that ticket as a memento. And that was a special year because our high school team, Sir Francis Drake, actually won the state championship as well. Both the boys and girls won the state title for the first time in the history of California. But equally as impressive was that catch by Dwight Clark. When in college at San Francisco State, I worked as a security guard during the summertime and even some in the spring at night when school was over and we weren't in season for basketball. And I started in the parking lot, then worked to the perimeter at the fire gates, and eventually got to the backstop, which was the best position, obviously, to watch the game as a security guard, but also, protect the fans, of course.
But who are you? You got Mays and McCovey. Who else is?
Vida Blue was,
Okay.
one of our all-time favorite Giants, even though he came over from the Oakland A's, just his personality. He talked about warmth earlier in terms of some people that, are celebrities, and I think Vida Blue had one of those personalities, was great with the fans. But we struggled through, Johnny LeMaster. Jack Clark was one of the great ones, but he got traded. Rennie Stennett, if you go back as
Former
a kid.
Pirate.
Mike Ivey.
Padre.
Yep. So there was some Terry Whitfield as well.
You had some lean years there.
Larry Herndon got traded. Most of the guys that got traded won after they left the Giants. Herndon with Detroit. Jack Clark with St. Louis.
Did you see Wilt Chamberlain when you were growing up?
I did.
When he was with the Warriors?
Didn't. Clifford Ray, Rick Barry, Phil Smith,
Okay, when they won the
Jamal
title.
Wilkes before he got traded, Gus Williams. Again, the Warriors had some years, too, where their best players got traded away, and they traded away the rights to the pick that became Kevin McHale in a trade.
Well, that was the Joe Barry Carroll.
That's right. Yep.
That changed two franchises.
Brutal.
Yeah.
Tough for the
Really
Warriors.
changed the Celtics there.
Complete
I would
different
never
direction.
have traded with Red Auerbach. Like, if Red's on the phone, I would have said, hang up.
Yeah, anyone that's on the phone and also smoking a cigar, you know that you're in for a tough day.
Chances are he's celebrating before. We're talking to Steve Lavin, St. John's head coach, joining us in New York City Man Cave. The coach now, if you know you're recruiting against him, that you know you're in trouble.
I'd say Mike Krzyzewski, because Duke has their program at such a high level, and the exposure they receive, on a annual basis, and just the numbers they've put up. Mike Krzyzewski's come the closest in the modern era, at least, of John Wooden's numbers when you consider the number of Final Fours, the national championships, a Hall of Fame coach, and he doesn't seem to be slowing down. That's the remarkable part. Is he may be able to do this for another decade.
But what do recruits want to hear now that maybe has changed in the last 15 years?
I think more and more the focus is on the next level, on the NBA, and that's always been a dream and a goal. But I think today, maybe it's because of the 24-hour sports news cycle, the information age, the electronic age that we live in, and kids aspire to play in the NBA. So I know at St. John's, what we talk about is our tradition, our heritage, New York City, Madison Square Garden, our staff, our style of play, and, of course, my track record of having kids that have gone on to the NBA, 20 kids or so now that have played in the NBA from my days at UCLA and now St. John's. And so you try and build that argument and as persuasively as you can convince kids that they can stay in New York or come to New York, whether they're from overseas or coast to coast or in our backyard here in Connecticut, Jersey, or New York.
Best player you coached?
Baron Davis is the most talented player I've ever coached. I'd say Earl Watson, just in terms of his numbers over 4 years at UCLA and now in his 13th year in the NBA, just consistency, kind of the old tortoise in the hare, someone that I really I'm proud of because he maximized his experience. I think he'll be a great coach in the NBA someday, or like a Joe Dumars as a general manager or president, because he's got a great business mind as well as the basketball acumen and expertise. And so he just has a gift for teaching, for motivating young people, and he's reached back in Kansas City, where he's from, and he has AAU programs there as well as in LA because he has a second home now in Southern California.
What did UCLA teach you in a positive way? That you go in there and you got John Wooden who's there in the stands, you got the banners, the expectations, and you go in there and get fed to the wolves. Even though you did have great success, it still wasn't good enough. Why?
Well, I think you understand certain, institutions, certain sports entities, the Yankees, the Lakers,
But did you
the
understand
Celtics.
that going in?
Absolutely. Now, I was there 12 years. I arrived at 26 years old as the volunteer assistant, and then I moved up to the third assistant, the second assistant, the first assistant. Then I was an interim coach. Then I became the permanent head coach for 7 years, and then I was the fired coach. So over 12 years, I went from the bottom to the top to the chopping block. And so that in and of itself was valuable. And it doesn't happen very often at the highest level of any industry where you get to come in as basically an intern and move up to become the CEO, and then eventually you're the fired CEO. And that was valuable. And then the 7 years away in broadcasting was a great chance to step back, look at the world through a different lens, continue increasing my basketball acumen because you're barnstorming coast to coast with Brent Musburger. We enjoyed a couple good bottles of beer as well as red wine. When I buy, it was wine. When Brent bought, it was beer. But that's okay. That's the kind of guy he is. Montana, I respect that, love that. And, we grew to really enjoy one another's company. And that was a time that I was able to, off-season, get some quality time with my mother and father. And my father passed February 10th. So those 7 years I'll treasure because the pace slowed down when you're in broadcasting. I had real off seasons, unlike you do in coaching. And that time so valuable as your parents are coming to the finish line. Life's so precious, so fragile, and you realize that as you get older. So I'm grateful for that. And then St. John's gave me this chance to come back for a second tour of duty in coaching, and I'm really enjoying New York. And we have a young team that I think could be very dangerous come March.
Sometimes we always talk about reality checks or something puts things in perspective. You mentioned your father passing away, but you also went through cancer. And to be able to understand what basketball means to you, what life means to you, but certainly basketball, how did that put anything into perspective going through cancer?
Well, I think cancer and loss, any type of tragedy or hardship, adversity, does shape or forge a different perspective. And I think number one is you begin to have a better appreciation for what really matters. Your health, family, a handful of friends. And if you have those, you're ahead of the game. And then when you get to do something you love, like coach basketball or be a broadcaster covering basketball, it becomes a magic carpet ride. So while there's some true hardship, you can always reframe and pull out some valuable lessons, and sometimes you need some distance to really gain an appreciation for why certain things happened, because I think I learned more from being fired at UCLA, battling cancer, and I can't say I've learned a lot from losing my father, but I do have a greater appreciation for how precious family is and how fragile our existence is, because when something's taken from you, like your father, you do have an elevated level of what's really important in life.
Did you ever think about death, going through cancer treatment?
Yes, and my father had gone through cancer and also had triple and quadruple bypasses. He had a full life, 82 years old, and was grateful for the life he had and was still lucid right to the end in his final breath and his final day. That's the kind of death you hope all people can have. So, definitely thought of death when you're being wheeled into that operating room. And my procedure was 7.5 hours. And I was fortunate to have Earl Watson there with my wife, Mary, and my mother, Mary, both when I went in and when I came out. So the surgery was probably 3 times as long as the doctors anticipated. And that's one of the reasons why I had the setback and actually missed a year of coaching here at St. John's. But, so all those things, your mortality and the priorities in life, and appreciating each moment. Definitely going through an experience like cancer, it does affect you, change you.
Do you need a shooting guard who doesn't pass? I got a year of eligibility.
I heard we're looking into the NCAA's interpretation of your eligibility based on potentially a GI Bill situation. We can bring you back. You weren't in the Korean War, were you?
No, I was not. No,
Okay.
I was not.
Oh, okay.
No, not in World War II either. Is this an official offer to? Because I will give up this job to play a year at St. John's.
We'll find a role for you. We'll carve out a role
But look,
for
I'm
you.
not a good team player. I just want to let you know. I don't like passing.
I've heard you're a little high maintenance.
I am high maintenance.
Now, we're worried about chemistry in the locker room.
Is the name on the back of my jersey, could it be different than everybody else? Could it have some, like, spark? I'd like to have on front and back. Could I have that?
You want the Elvis in the house?
Yeah, whatever. I would just like to be treated a little differently than these kids are, okay?
Well, I have a lot of flexibility. That's one of my strengths as a coach. And it all depends on your game. Do you add value? You know, we have to check your foot speed based on the ankle injury last week. So that could be a problem.
I'll be ready to go next year.
Lateral foot speed.
I would be ready to go next year.
We'll put you in a training regimen.
I'm going to do one and done at St. John's, and then I'll go pro.
You'll be like Mo Harkless, the one that left us a couple years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. But
Now with Orlando. The Magic.
if you need me, I'm here.
It's good to know. And, you know, we live right around the corner from here, so I can drop by and see how the progress is going in terms of your training regimen, skill development. You know.
Krzyzewski didn't want me. Go figure. So if you need me, it's more of a local charity thing for you.
And you're a better fit here, I think, in the Northeast. I see you more as an urban guy.
Yeah, that's me, urban.
Yeah,
I shop at Urban Outfitters, so it's the same thing. It's great to see you. And
Pleasure,
I'm glad you're healthy.
always.
And thanks for stopping by. He's Steve Lavin from St. John's.
The Dan Patrick Show, weekday mornings on Audience.